And we're live. Hello, Cash. After
I
that light change, you look a bit like the Undertaker. No, I'm joking. That looks good, guys. For anyone who is tuning in so far, anyway, and we've just started. Thanks very much for joining. We're going to be talking about, as you can tell from the ticker at the bottom, the India versus England third test, the day-nighter. With the pink ball, which for me is probably going to be the most interesting test. Well, it's the most intriguing test, I think. It might end up being very boring, but I'm hoping it's not going to be. And I think there's a lot of intrigue as to what's going to happen, how the pitch is going to play, how much the pink ball is going to have. Are Anderson and Broad going to play? Is it going to do bits? The SEG ball is pink, but they say that it's not as effective for bowlers as the other pink balls. How much is the lights going to come in? Are the lights going to come into it? Is it going to be a flat deck? There's just so many different scenarios. So we'll discuss it. Let's start off first of all with under the lights with the pink ball. Who's it an advantage for, do you think, Cash?
It's a difficult one. I think it's interesting. There's only been like one day-nighter in India as at Eden Gardens when India absolutely thrashed Bangladesh. I think Bangladesh lost by an innings and 40 runs. So we haven't got that much to go on. A lot of day-nighters we've seen in Australia. And it's said that the Kookaburra pink ball goes softer quicker. So there's an idea that the SG pink ball will hold its shape more. I think, to be honest, both teams have got very strong seam bowling lineups. It depends partly on who they choose. I mean, maybe we want to talk a little bit about the bowling options. I would maybe give it slightly more to India. I think they can maybe get a bit more out of the surface. I think there's a case for Umesh Yadav playing over possibly Siraj. He did really well in the Bangladesh game. I think he got a fifer, and he's back in the mix. And there's a lot of talk about him possibly taking Siraj's place alongside Sharma and Bumrah.
That's interesting, because I would have thought, I guess, and again, I guess it's not taking into account Umesh Yadav's form, and I thought he bowled pretty well in Australia, and he did really well whilst coming in. And if you look at the pecking order, I think before the Australia tour, he was probably in front of someone like Siraj. Yeah. I feel like Siraj gives more in terms of through the air and off the pitch potentially, but he's not as quick as someone like Umesh Yadav, who's very up and down, and it can be more threatening. But I would have thought maybe under the lights he's more effective, but then again, the pitch in Ahmedabad is supposed to be quite flat. So when you don't have the lights and you don't have a ball that's super new, which eventually gets, it doesn't stay new for very long, does it? That pink ball, the SCG pink ball. So realistically, maybe Umesh Yadav is an option they go for. So that would be quite interesting to see whether that happens. From an Indian kind of fan, as an Indian fan, what kind of bowling options would you go with then? Going into this match?
I think there's the Yadav situation is interesting. Then you're looking at Ashwin definitely, and then you're looking for effectively a part-time spinner, whether it's going to be Aksha or if it's going to be Kuldeep. So the question that maybe Kuldeep might get you a little bit more out of the pitch if the pitch isn't doing much. At the same time, a bit weaker batting. So there's that question, I think, in the air. I'm not sure. I might go for Aksha, just because he gives you the batting and he did really well in the last game. It might be a bit rude or a bit unfair for him to lose his spot. But at the same time, they may think that the conditions might suit somebody like Kuldeep a bit more.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Kuldeep, it's not his home ground. I think it's Akshar Patel's home ground. But someone said to me, I think it's a wheel on the stream, he said Kuldeep should probably get picked if you base it on his form in Ahmedabad. Because if you look at this, I think statistically, Kuldeep has bowled very well in Ahmedabad compared to Akshar Patel, which is quite interesting considering it's his home ground. But obviously, we know Akshar Patel gives you runs as well, so it gives you more batting. So maybe that's that's definitely a plus for him. And as you said, he got a fifer, so it's pretty difficult. Someone was, when I did the preview and we touched upon it with Jamie Alty, he said to me, do they go with Hardik Pandya? But then obviously, we don't know whether he's fully fit to bowl. And then why they put him in this squad if they're not going to play him because he's the only seam all-rounder? They're not going to play him as a specialist batsman. So interesting to see whether is he fit enough to do it. And maybe this the match to do it with obviously the pink ball and probably a little bit more for the bowlers than you'll probably get in the whole series, the seam bowlers anyway. So, I guess if he's fit and he's firing, you probably put him in there, depending on the pitch maybe. But then what if it's a dry? What if it's a Turner? What if it's a dry pitch, Cash? Actually, it's a good question. What if it's a dry pitch that potentially, you get to day 3, 4, 5, and it's given a lot to the spinners. But then obviously under the lights with the new ball, it's still in favour of the seamers. What balance do you strike there then? Do you kind of say from an Indian point of view, okay, Ashwin, you've got that one spinner, he's definitely going to have him. Do you say we definitely need a second spinner? Or does it depend on maybe the strip that's out there?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And like Roots, I think today or yesterday was saying that actually there is a lot of turn and bounce for the spinners. There will be. Particularly bounce, and he thinks that that's going to really work towards Ashwin's favour. And he was kind of heaping a lot of praise on Ashwin. So, yeah, if we look at it deteriorating, the pitch, then certainly a second spinner does make a lot of sense to mix it up, considering you'll have 3 really good fast men. These are kind of, elite fast bowlers. So in a way, if you choose Hardik, do you really need him? Do you really need a 4th kind of fast medium? Like, he's not going to bowl that much, is he? Is he bringing you that difference? Is he going to bring you that X factor which might get the key wicket? That's why you would bring in someone like Akshar or somebody like Kuldeep to bring you that slightly different thing. I don't think Hardik's going to do that for you.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and maybe that's highlighted by the lack of influence that someone like Ben Stokes has had. Obviously, he got that 80 odd, but since then hasn't done much. I think the same would probably hold true for someone like Hardik Pandya in terms of he'd be in there really to get some runs and bowl a few overs. And I don't know how much he would have been utilised. Ben Stokes hasn't been utilised too much, and when he has been, he hasn't been super effective, right? He hasn't got a bucket load of wickets or anything, or been a game changer with the ball. So I think he said he's looking forward to bowling with a pink ball, and he actually said, Ben Stokes, that Jofra Archer, Broad and Anderson are licking their lips at the prospect of bowling under the lights with a pink ball. So what that to me, he's alluding to the fact that all 3 are going to play, I think. So then if we move on to the England seamers, do you think they're going to play those 3 then? And then potentially Stokes, and I guess that then leaves you with 1 spinner and then potentially Root. I guess you can go with another bowler in there. What do you think?
It's a tough one. Like, Anderson's is dead on. He'll definitely be playing. He's rested. He's been rested for this game. Problem with Broad is he didn't bowl very much last game. And that was partly the conditions. It weren't great for him, but also he wasn't getting that much out of the pitch compared to, say, an Anderson. He doesn't really reverse it at all. Well, at least not then. Archer, you would say definitely, but then I was reading about Wood, and someone saying Wood can reverse it and Archer can't. And so Wood might be able to get.
Wood can definitely reverse the ball. I think I agree with that statement, because I don't think I've seen Archer reverse the ball. Wood definitely can. I've seen him do it in the past.
Yeah, so they're saying, you've brought Wood all this way. Maybe this is kind of one of the games that he should be playing. It would be a big call, I think, because Archer's obviously seen as like the special weapon, the X factor player. Then the question is, look, obviously Leach is definitely in. He's your first spinner, your frontline spinner. If you don't play, problem is if you play Broad, Anderson, Archer, Wood, Leach, you've got quite a long tail. So then, do you play Wokes instead of Broad? Whereas Wokes can play a similar role and has a bit of batting. We know Broad's batting isn't really up to it anymore. So that's going to be a debate within the England camp. I think sometimes they play a bit too safe and they may just do Broad, Anderson, Archer, because Broad will start getting really angry or something. There's this sense that you know, you don't want to upset the bowlers. And Wokes has just accepted that he's subordinate to them.
Yeah, I think he's taken on the role of knowing that he's second fiddle, unfortunately, to the rest. And Jamie also said to me, actually, Jamie said that Wokes is very underrated in the sense that, look, I mean, he's won games for England. He's clearly he's good with the bat as well, as you said. And I think, yeah, you make a really good point where you say if they play Broad, Anderson, Archer, and Leach, right, for example, because that's a potential that could happen. That's a very long tail. 8 to 11. That's really weak. And in a Test match, it's not great considering that England really, apart from Root, haven't been particularly firing. Stokes has been Ashwin's bunny, which we'll touch upon in a sec as well. And yeah, so I just think they need runs from anywhere really. And Wokes, I think, under the lights of the pink ball, I think he will do well with it. I actually think I've seen him reversible a little bit as well as Chris Wokes. So he has that ability. I think Archer, if he's fit, he'll definitely play just because even though someone like Wood can reverse the ball, as you said, I think they'll probably look at Archer and think, as you said, he's the X factor. And with the new ball or even an older ball, he's got that injection of pace that is slightly different to Wood. It's a bit more bounce. It's a bit more it's one of those nasty. He's one of those nasty bowlers, and not in like a. Not to say he's a nasty person, but to face him would be a nightmare because the ball chases you. He has that natural kind of angle that comes into the right hander, and it will hit you, and he gets those wickets that will come off the glove. You'll be fending it, and he's that aggressive type of bowler that you need in a spurt. The only issue I have with that, I don't know what your opinion on this is, that if they do play those four, who's going to put in the hard yards? Because technically, Archer should be bowling in spurts. Broad and Anderson are old. They're not going to bowl super long spells, even though they don't bowl particularly quick. So who's going to bowl the long spells? Who's it going to fall upon? Leach will have to bowl a lot, but under the lights of the pink ball, the seamers are going to have to bowl more. So really, for me, there's two options: either Stokes has to bowl more overs, or they need to somehow try and share it around the three as well. And Leach takes on a lot, but I think there is definitely going to be a potential that they could bowl someone like Archer into the ground, which has been an issue in the past. Do you know what your thoughts are on that?
I think someone like Broad can bowl a lot more than we. He's a little bit younger than Anderson. He's not that old. I think he can bowl long spells. In my opinion, he can bowl longer spells than maybe he has done so far. We also have the thing is day nighters is not going to be as hot, which is going to be a big factor in the sense that they'll be used to the heat, so then when it cools down, they'll feel like, okay, we can do this. Both Broad and Anderson are very stubborn, so if they were asked to do it, they would do it. I think it will be about game management and it will be about rotating. I think Archer, it's always difficult because we feel like he gets overbowled. He's not protected enough, and then at the same time, I don't know. It's difficult to manage him because you don't want to then not give him enough time to show how good he is as well. So it's, I think it'll be a difficult thing. Stokes, yeah, I guess he'll have to bowl a bit. He'll have to bowl more than he has bowled. I don't see Root bowling too much unless second innings it's spinning a lot more. In which case he might bring himself in to rotate. And Leach will have to do some hard bowling. It might be a bit of a rite of passage for Leach because he might get hit around a bit. But I feel like he's kind of growing in confidence and experience and rhythm that I wouldn't be too worried about him actually.
Yeah, I agree. I think Leach will do okay actually, and maybe because he'll know that there's not so much expectation on him, especially in the first 2 days anyway, to get a bucket load of wickets. I think you're right. Broad will be able to bowl slightly longer spells, I think, than someone like Anderson. And it's interesting the point you made about Archer about what's the best way to utilize him. And I think the best way to utilize him is in one of two ways. And I think Venny made a really good point. We touched upon this like a few months back actually. I'll quote him because the way he said it was quite good. He said, "You can't use Archer in kind of like long spells or like at the start, and then also use him as an enforcer." He said he needs to either be one or the other. So I guess if you've got Anderson and Broad, he's not going to bowl at the start. Okay, so then you either say, "Here's the ball," come on his first change and bowl short spells, quick. Because with the older ball, as you said, he's not going to reverse the ball. So actually, with the older ball, you actually want Braun and Anderson. So it's that middle part, I think, that you want to use Archer and probably Stokes. Or, as you know, Leach will come in there as well into play in these types of pitches, and Leach will be bowling quite a lot. So I think that's maybe the way to use him, because as the ball gets older, Anderson will be able to reverse it. So I think that would be interesting.
But my opinion on that actually is Archer should be opening. Broad should be doing some of the middle work. Because we even saw it that Archer, was all over the openers, the Indian openers, Gill and Sharma in particular. So if I was the guy, I would be saying Anderson and Archer. Unfortunately, I feel like they will do what you said and do Anderson and Broad, which is I wouldn't do that personally.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to do it because, I say unfortunately, but these guys have done it so much for England over the past X amount of years that to then say you're not going to open the bowling is just they're going to be like, what? No way. And I think there would be a whole hoo-ha. And if Broad wasn't opening, I think he'd come out on day one and be like, if I'd opened the bowling, I would have taken a fifer. and that kind of thing, which would be quite funny to see. We love a Broad outburst. But yeah, I think Archer, is most effective with the new ball. I agree with you, with a harder ball that's coming on quickly, and also hitting that, the stickers of the bat. That's kind of the splice of the bat. Even that's what you want to see. You want to see him hitting the splice of the bat early doors and troubling the openers, and he did that. But yeah, I guess he's going to have to kind of fall back. If they do play both, which they may not. I think maybe the ideal scenario is to play Wokes instead of Broad, and then you have. Then you can have Archer and Anderson opening, and then Wokes can bowl longer spells. So that might be the ideal. So it'll be interesting to see. I said we touch upon Stokes. Ashwin has just got his number. He's got his number. It's just one of those things. Like Hazelwood had Kohli's number for the series and the ODIs, and then that first Test match, and it was one of those things. And sometimes players go through this spell, and Ashwin just seems to have Stokes' number. And obviously, it's tough as a left-hander because the ball's spinning away from him, blah blah blah, etc. But what does he need to do? Is it a mental thing? Do you think? Do you think he needs to overcome that mentally and maybe take it to what's the word? I think he needs to take the attack potentially to Ashwin, but that's risky. So, what do you think? How do you think he should do it? How do you think he should approach it?
I think he's in a bit of a quagmire, shall we say, in terms of how he plays Test cricket. Yeah. Maybe he's in a little bit of the Butler problem at the moment. Does he go for it and play maybe his slightly more natural game, which is the offensive game, or does he play deep? And the problem is when all the top order are getting out quite quickly, and he's coming in relatively probably quicker than he would like. The top three in particular doing like really poorly for England over the last couple of tests. So I think he comes in thinking that he needs to really make a partnership with Root, and he just gets done. So I think you're right. He does need to play more attacking, and just bring it to Ashwin. And we saw it with flashes of it with Folks and with Ollie Pope, that if you kind of play your shots a bit more, you can get Ashwin off the pitch is kind of what you want. You don't want him bowling, basically.
Yeah, you want to be able to hit them off the square, don't you? Otherwise, you're in trouble, and then people come around the bat, and it's just a nightmare. And as we said, he's the best Test spinner around, and one of the best Test bowlers around at the moment. So I think it's obviously always going to be a challenge if you're right-hander or left-hander. But someone as talented as Stokes, considering he averages just under 50 in this whole World Test Championship so far, he's got to do better, I think. And as you said, I think maybe it needs to be calculated pressure. Maybe he needs to use his feet better. I don't think he's someone who can use his feet quite well, but he hasn't been utilising it maybe as well as he can. He's got long levers. I think he needs to play a bit straighter. And I think maybe he needs to get out of his head, and maybe it is a case of coming down the track, hitting him over the top once or twice, and then next thing you know, he's over it. And sometimes, it depends on the type of player. Someone like Sibley might be a bit different because he might say, okay, if I stick in for 15 overs against Ashwin, then I know that I'm in a good place. But someone like Stokes will have a different mentality, I think. And as you said, he needs to be a bit more attacking because that's his game. Even in a test match, of course, you don't want to be silly and just come charging down the wicket to Ashwin at the wrong delivery. But you can pick your moments, I think, and that's what he'll need to do. But Ashwin is a very clever bowler, and I'm sure he'll adjust as well. So that's something to keep an eye on, I think, for the rest of the series for sure. Before we do go on to anything else, actually, I wanted to touch upon how much of an effect do you actually think the pink ball and the lights will have? Do you think it will have a big effect, or do you actually just think it will be mainly to do with how the pitch plays, and really the pink ball and the lights are just, it'll be a small factor into how this match goes?
I think it's going to be certainly a mental factor because everyone's talking about it. It hasn't really happened before in India. So, it's on everyone's mind, right? And even Kohli's been talking about the fact that the twilight period is the hardest period, when the sun's going down and this, that, and the other. It's definitely be on everyone's mind. I'll be interested to see what happens at the toss, because just purely on the back of the fact that India got bowled out for 36 and Bangladesh getting bowled out for under 200 when they played in Eden Gardens, and they batted first. I'm wondering if the people are going to choose to bowl first, whether they're going to think, let's make the most of the seaming track and let's try and get them out for a short total, for a low total, before the track deteriorates and becomes a kind of slightly better for spin. I wonder. I'm just thinking about that. That would be interesting to see.
It will be. It will be. My thoughts are it's probably. I feel like there will be moments in the match where under the lights with a pink ball you might see it do some bits, but majority of the time I can't see India preparing a pitch that's not going to suit the spinners pretty early on, just because of what happened in that second test match. Sure, they'll want to capitalize on it, and that's their, as I said, that's their prerogative. They're the home side, so really, they should utilize it. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's an intriguing one. Cash, before we wrap up, who do you think is going to win the third test match?
I mean, one thing we haven't talked about is the England openers, because it looks like, well, rumors are Burns is out. The rumors are, and that Crawley's going to come in, right-hander.
Bairstow at 3,
and then Bairstow at 3. That's the rumors at the moment. And Bairstow's got a really good average against Ashwin in particular. He's incredible, like something like 70 or something. So it makes sense to bring him in, and Crawley to bring the right, to just because Burns has been kind of being so bad. If that works out, I would give England a shot at this. This is probably their best shot to win. That's what we said before this series, that this was their best shot to win because of the pink ball doing a little bit more under the lights. And they won the first one without that advantage. So I don't see why they shouldn't. It's going to be tight. It's going to be tight.
Yeah, I agree. I would. I'm going to go bold like you, and I'm going to say England will win this one, and then 2-2 the series. I'll stick to my prediction from the start. But yeah, anything you want to touch on before we wrap up?
I think that's everything, mate.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Cash, and thank you for. I think we had a few people coming in and out. So thanks very much for joining, and thanks for the support. Please do like this video and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Although I know most people have now, so that's really helpful. Appreciate the support. Have a good one, and we'll see you tomorrow. We hopefully should be doing a day review, and I might try and do a live stream as well. I'll keep you guys updated. Thank you very much. Have a great evening or morning or afternoon or wherever you are. Thanks.